All right. Well, at 10:01, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, welcome. My name is Mark Ekman. I am the Executive Director of the Council Bluffs Convention and Visitors Bureau, and also Chair of the Iowa Travel Industry Partners Resources Committee. And actually, the Resources Committee is the one that spearheaded the effort in terms of this event economic impact calculator. So happy to be with you today. Happy to be sharing the information that we're going to be sharing. We're going to do kind of a tag team approach. Rebecca Peters is going to take over when we get into the demo portion of it. Chelsea LaRoute is going to be behind the scenes helping with getting the information loaded into the calculator. So we've got a tag team approach here. Just to give you a little bit of background, the Iowa Travel Industry Partners has got 5 committees: development, resources, education, advocacy, and marketing. And if you're not aware, that spells DREAM, which is, of course, very appropriate for the state of Iowa with the Field of Dreams being here. But resources has been meeting since October of 2020 and really focusing in on those kind of things that can be resources for our membership. And if you're not a member, I hope you consider becoming one, because certainly this would be one of the major reasons to do so. When we started meeting and we started focusing in on the event impact calculator, there was one in existence, and some of you may be aware of it. It was developed in 2013. Think Iowa City worked with the University of Iowa graduate student class, and they developed that and delivered it to the Iowa Destination Marketing Alliance at the end of 2013. And while it was a great tool, we quickly found that there were some issues with it, particularly with the fact that we needed to collect surveys during the course of the event to actually get the necessary information to calculate that economic impact. Well, if you're a lot like other communities, you may be already tapping out all your available volunteers just to put the event on, let alone ask a group to go out and survey those attendees. So that became a bit of a stumbling block that we decided to go ahead and try to address if possible. So through the project, we reached out again to the University of Iowa, but also the University of Northern Iowa, as well as Iowa State University, to see if there was a part of the university in each one of those respective institutions that could assist us in modifying it to make it simpler to use. And we found out that CyBIZ Lab, which is a component or affiliate with Iowa State University, was exactly that partner that was more than interested, was pretty enthusiastic about taking it on. And so the committee started working with them over the course of the summer and then kicked off the project in September. They worked on it with intermediate meetings with a contingency from the committee, just to make sure that they were on the right track. And then by December, they wrapped up the project and delivered what we're going to demo with you today. The total cost of the project was $5,000, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge those partners within iTIP that stepped forward to cover the cost. Those partners included the Okoboji Tourism Committee, Think Iowa City, the Ames CVB, Travel Dubuque, and the Council Bluffs CVB. So thank you for those partners to be able to make this possible for us to demo it. And I think also deliver a really meaningful tool for all iTIP members. At this point, I'm going to kind of segue to that tag team approach that I mentioned at the top of the meeting. And like I said before, if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat, either during the demonstration or at the end. That might be a little easier time for us to be able to read those off. But without ado, I'm going to turn things over to Rebecca.
The phone just rang in my office at the exact moment that you turned it over. So you may hear Lori in the background talking. Sorry about that. So I am Rebecca Peters. I'm the Director of Tourism in Okoboji, and we recently had a large event take place in our community, one of the largest in the winter, called the University of Okoboji Winter Games. And Mark reached out and asked if I might be willing to input some of our numbers from that event into the calculator to showcase how this works and kind of what the results were. So that's what we're going to be doing. And I think Chelsea's going to do a screen share, and we'll talk through how this model works and kind of some of the background behind it. This is a tool that can be found on the iTIP website. And so in order to get there, you go to the top with member login and you use your login credentials. Every organization has one login credential. And so you just click on that and then all of a sudden you're in. From this point, you can scroll down a little bit and you can see each button that represents a different committee within iTIP. And so the calendar or the calculator that we're working with today is under the resource committee or the resource tab. So you just click on R and then you can scroll down a bit and you can see that there are 4 additional tabs. The technical tools and forum, I believe that's just the forum, correct, Chelsea? So this is a great tool if anyone within the industry has a question to ask some of their colleagues that they maybe don't want it to be out within people outside of the area. You can post a question and then others can go in and give some answers. The next one is job opportunities. And this is a great benefit to all of our iTIP members. If you have a job opening in your office, you can post the job right here. Only iTIP members can post jobs, but anyone, you don't have to be a member, anyone can see them. So you can view the jobs from outside of the member login. The next button is grant opportunities. And right now there aren't any grant opportunities, but that's something that the resource committee is looking into for the future. And the final one is research tools. And that's where we're going to find the calculator. So if we just scroll up a bit. There is a tutorial video, so if you forget anything from today, you can click on that and learn a little bit more. If you want to learn some more about the background behind it, you can click in red, read the full CyBIZ Labs methodology. I can tell you that I've skimmed the full CyBIZ Labs methodology, but if you want to deep dive into that, it tells you exactly how this calculator works so that if anyone asks you, you can dive into that. And then beyond that, it's just a form that you fill out, you put your information in. And so to start with the organization name, we'll just put Okoboji Tourism. And then for event name, we're going to put Winter Games. And maybe we would even put like Winter Games 2022 because the data that you input all gets saved into a spreadsheet. And with this spreadsheet, that information is not open to anyone else except for the administrator of iTIP. And really that's there just so that if you need to go back and gain some more knowledge from that, or maybe you forgot the numbers that you put in, Chelsea can go back and look that up for you. But that's not information that's open to the public or any even iTIP members. So event date, our event was a multiple day event, but we're going to just put for the sake of doing this, we're going to just do 1 day of it. So I'm going to put was it the 29th? Maybe?
That's 22? What we did, yes.
Yeah, so I think that Saturday was the 29th. That was the largest day. If you have a multi-day event, you can combine them. And so you can kind of just double your numbers, which is what we're going to do for this demonstration. Or if you feel like your numbers vary quite a bit from day to day, you could enter each day separately, and then you could average those numbers together, kind of combine them. So is this an event confirmed or tentative? This was a confirmed event. We actually had it. What's going to be nice for all of you to use this as a resource is that if you're looking at bringing a new event into your community, you can throw in some numbers and you can test it out to see the economic impact that it'll have on your community to try to determine if it'll be worthwhile for you to put the time and effort and the dollars into sponsoring that event. Next is this event primarily a business or tourism event? So for us, this was a tourism event. One thing to note is if it's a business event or like a business meeting, conference, trade show, you may have slightly different numbers when it comes to room nights. And we can talk about that with hotel rooms. And we can talk about that when we enter the numbers in. And then the type of regional area. And so this is described at the top of that segment but there are 4 different areas to choose from: the large metro area, a medium-sized, a small metro area, and a seasonal, well, I guess there are 5, and a seasonal recreation county, which is what we would, and then all other counties. So if you click on that, you can see the drop-down menu. And so you can see kind of all the different options. And like I said, the descriptions of each of those are at the top. That is going to help factor in the behind the scenes, what numbers get input for your particular event. Like I said, ours is a seasonal recreational county. And then when it comes to the total number of attendees, we estimate that we have about 25,000 attendees. This information we gather from the number of people that we have in our community that participate in the events, as well as arrivalist information that we were able to work with the State of Iowa Tourism Office on, so that we could kind of get a better feel for how many visitors we had to the area. And then the next question is the percentage of out of region attendees needing a hotel room. Oh, oops, sorry. Percent of attendees from outside the region. We estimate that 60% of our attendees are from outside of the region. And again, this just comes from kind of calculating who we have. And with this, you're not going to put a percentage, you're going to put a decimal point number. The next question is the percentage of out of region attendees needing a hotel room. And with this, we're going to put 22%. And I calculated that based on the number of hotel rooms and vacation rentals that we have available in the area, because that would be the maximum number of people that could utilize those rooms. And on that particular weekend, our lodging options were full in the area. So that is all you have to do to input data in there. And when you get that all done, then you click next, and then you come to the next page. And this is where you factor in spending per attendee. So this is a little tricky. You think about some people, you may be spending a lot, and some people may be spending not as much. People from out of town may be spending more than your local residents within your community. So you really want to factor in kind of what do you think the average is for everybody. The first option is for food and beverage stores, and this is really grocery stores. And so with that, we do have a default value in the state of Iowa, and that default value is $5.21. And so I just took that and doubled it because the majority of our visitors were here at least 2 days. And so we doubled that to $10.42. The next option is for gas stations and convenience stores. And people were taking full advantage of those during the weekend. The default value in the state of Iowa for tourism is $15.24. And so I utilized that number and doubled it because, again, it was a multi-day event. So I doubled that to $30.48. Next, clothing and accessory stores. This one doesn't have a default value, and also I'm going to leave this one blank because the vast majority of our visitors were not spending a lot of time in clothing and accessory stores in the area. And so that's going to be 0. And then the next one is sporting goods or other recreational goods stores. Again, in our community, we just don't have a lot of those. And during that particular weekend, we didn't see a lot of people utilizing that. I am looking over at the chat, and Nick, you asked how were the default values arrived at? Those are numbers, and you can, if you dive into the report at the opening of this page, not this particular one, but at the opening of the like the methodology, I guess, it'll kind of explain that. But those are default values that the Iowa State economics people came up with based on surveys that were done and kind of based on general values. So that's where those came from. I hope that answers. And then Matthew says, for your line by line spending value, since you're calculating it for 1 day at a time, would you want to use the normal default values since you're only calculating for 1 day? That's a very great question. And if I was only calculating for 1 day, yes. But I am we saw that it's a minimum 2-night stay in Okoboji, so we felt confident that people were here 2 full days, which is why I just doubled that number. And so I'm calculating it for 2 days, hence I doubled it. Is there somewhere to find a list of these default values? That's a great question. The default values, if there are default values, are going to be right in that particular category. So under sporting goods or other recreational goods stores, there is not a default value for that particular category. Again, I said we don't have one, so that's going to be left at 0. But under general merchandise stores, you can see at the very back, at the end of the description, the default value is $21.82. So, and then kind of going back to that, we are at the general merchandise stores. With that, I am going to keep that one at $21.82. And I know that I've been doubling some of the other categories, but we do find that a lot of our visitors that come to the area are not spending much time in general merchandise stores. Instead, they're spending time more outdoor and recreational activities. And so we left that at $21.82. So next we can move on. Yep, we go to next. And now we're doing spending per attendee for ticketing. So for performing arts venues, this is where I categorized people who maybe went to concerts that were ticketed in the area or participated in an event in the area that was ticketed. So for that, and if it's an event in your area, it's probably easier to come up because if it's a specific concert or event, you know what that ticket price is. With us, it varied quite a bit, and we knew that not everybody was. So we did an estimate of $5 per attendee for performing arts venues. And then next is commercial sports except for racing. So this would be any sort of sporting event that would take place in your community, and you would put in here what the ticket price would be for that sporting event. This we kept at 0. For racing and track operations, this would be for ticketed expenses if you were at a racetrack or a racing event. Again, this didn't apply to our particular event, so we put that at 0. And next is museums, historical sites, zoos, and parks. Again, this would be for ticketed expenses related to those. Any of ours that were open that particular weekend were free of charge, so we kept that at 0. I'm going to go look at I think, Mark, are you kind of answering some of the questions in the chat as we go?
I am, but I have not answered Julie's 2 questions, which I apologize for. If you want to take a moment to answer, what is your outside of the region mileage based on?
We average that at 50 miles outside of the region. So we're really looking at people who would come into the area and probably spend the night, whether it be at a vacation rental, a hotel, or at a house of a friend's. So we just choose 50 miles as ours. And then the next one that Julie had is there a way to put a 0 in the category that has a default set, or will it always be default? Nope, you can put any dollar amount you want in that. So if you happen to know that yours is very different from what the default is, you can definitely include that. And so you do not have to do the default. Just for the sake of this conversation and because I didn't know what any more accurate number would be, I went with the default. Okay, so we'll get back to it. So amusement parks, again, museums were at 0. Amusement parks and arcades, we did not have any amusement parks that were open at the time, so we left that at 0. Next was gambling industry, exclude casino hotel costs, and this was for ticket expenses at casinos, and we don't have a casino in our community, so this was left at 0 as well. And then finally, all other amusement and recreation venues. And again, we covered pretty much everything in the very first one with the performing arts. So we kept that at 0. And then when you're done with this, you click next and go to the 4th and final page. Scroll up to the top and you're ready to go. So for this, hotels, motels, including casino hotels. So this is for expenses related to staying in the hotel. So what your room would be. And we know, and with this calculator, it takes the number that you put in. So if the average room night in Okoboji that particular weekend is $250, it's going to divide that by 2 because the average room puts in, or the average, because it takes into an average that there are 2 people per room. So it'll cut that in half. So if you have a business event that's coming up, you may want to double that number, just, I don't know, so that you trick the formula, because you may, with a business meeting, you may only have 1 person staying. So with this, Mark and Chelsea, in my notes, I have that I put $250 in this category. That was our average. Was that our average room night? I feel like that was our average room night. Or did I say it was like 125?
You said 250.
Yeah, and then the average person stayed 2 evenings, so that would bump it up to 500. And again, this is going to automatically cut it in half because it factors that 2 people will be staying in that room. So yeah, it would be 500. My notes were not correct. The next question is dining and drinking establishments. This is for restaurants and bars and takeout and other things that you would have in your community. So this would exclude any food that was picked up at a convenience store, because that would have come up during convenience stores earlier, and it would exclude any food that was purchased at a grocery store, because again, that was on a previous page as well. So for this, the default value in Iowa is $27.76. I'm going to go with the default value, but I am going to double that number, since people were here an average of 2 days, to $55.52. And then the next one is recreational equipment rental. This is for any time somebody might be renting something, whether it be a kayak or something else in your area. The default value for this per person is $1.09. We did not have any recreational equipment rentals available in the area that weekend, so I'm going to keep this number at 0. So this is one of those where there is a default value, but that doesn't apply to our community, so I'm going to keep it at 0. And then at this point, all you have to do is hit the submit button. And a link is going to come up, and you can click on that link, and it will actually, so for the sake of this, it doesn't do it, but we're going to open it up for you. It'll open a PDF for you, and your results will be in that PDF. And I think Chelsea's going to open the PDF. Ooh. And so with this, you can see what the results were from the winter games based on the numbers that we put in. So for the economic contribution summary from total spending, we saw that we had a total of about $3.7 million in total economic spending, and the economic impact from non-residents was at roughly $2.7 million. And so, oops, I did have a question. Sorry, Carla, that I didn't answer that back there. Is the dining cost per person or per travel party? It's per person. So everything that you put in, it was per person, not per travel party. Everything was per person. So that is how you put information in. That's where the numbers come from. Like, you do it based on your best judgment. And then you just fill out the form and you hit submit, and then you click the link and you get that PDF that shows your final numbers. Does anyone have any questions about how this works or anything further?
I just wanted to share, the only way for you to save those results is through that PDF. So once you have downloaded and viewed that PDF, make sure you save it to your file so that you have access to those again in the future. There's no way to go back to the form and they're not just going to be there for you. You would have to re-input the information.
And for anyone concerned about privacy of those results, those are private. We're not going to reveal anybody's economic impact figures unless you expressly give permission to iTIP. Those are your numbers. The only way that they can ever show up in anything else is that if we do an aggregate of all events where their economic impact was calculated. Now in an aggregate amount, they will show up, but they won't show up as winter games. They're not going to be a way of identifying those.
I will also say that if you want to share those events with your board, with community members, or anyone else, you are welcome to share those. But iTIP will never share those. That is your information.
There's another question that came in from Robin. I assume you need to be an iTIP member to access this calculator. That would be correct. It is a password protected section of the website, as Rebecca demonstrated. And that definitely was discussed. How do we offer this up as a member benefit and retain it? And so in thinking that through and dealing with that question, it was decided that we would embed the calculator into the website. So it's easily accessible for members, that's for sure. But that we don't, with someone first using that, give away the calculator and then not being able to control who sees it or who's using it. And since iTIP decided to develop it, it just made sense to make this just a member benefit.
And really the reason this came about is because we heard from people throughout the industry that they wanted a calculator like this that was really user friendly and that they could utilize not only to get the economic impact of events that they were hosting in their community, but also events that they were thinking of hosting in their community to see how valuable that would be. And so that's kind of why this all came about. We had people who spoke up and said, this is something we're missing. This is something we need. Is this something that you can offer us? And so it's a really nice member benefit.
Yeah, and I have to say that the CyBIZ lab team that worked on our project really dove in. These are exceptional students, if they were a grad student or undergrad, with supervision from the full-time staff of CyBIZ lab. Not to mention they did access Professor Swenson's expertise in developing or estimating these kind of impacts. So really kind of dove in and took full advantage of the academic expertise there at Iowa State. Other questions? Not seeing anything new pop up in the meeting chat.
Val, we're excited for you to give it a whirl also. The goal was really to try to make it as user-friendly as possible. And I think we did a good job with that.
This webinar is going to be, of course, it's been recorded. It will be available to iTIP members to take a look at, or will non-members be able to see it too, Chelsea?
Yep.
We can make it accessible to those that weren't able to attend today, yes.
Okay, excellent.
Tiffany has a question. Who is the best person to reach out to if we have questions while inputting our information? Probably Chelsea?
And Christy makes a good point. Hope we don't crash it as we all jump on to get some data. So yeah, I guess it's possible that we could get a lot of people at one time. If you have any difficulties, try again.
You can access this 24 hours a day and get your results as soon as you hit submit. So you can do this anytime you want. You don't have to do it right now.
Exactly. All right, folks. Well, we appreciate your attention, all the great questions and all. And yes, as you start to try it out and encounter some things that you have questions about, please feel free to reach out to Chelsea. She's a great point of contact. She was involved in the whole process and had been even before she became interim executive director. She was a part of the resources committee, so she's very well versed in this, and so should be able to answer any questions that you have. So with that, thank you so much for being a part of this, and we look forward to seeing you at the Iowa Tourism Conference, if not before.